I'm going to start by just showing you the data sheet that you get when you do your GCSE. Now it has the reactivity series of the metals at the top, and if we scroll down we have a periodic table at the bottom. If we go for example to magnesium here, it's in group 2, so we know it has 2 electrons in its outer shell, so it's going to lose 2 electrons usually when it forms compounds. So if it loses 2 negative things, it becomes more positive and it becomes a 2+ ion. So there's a simple way of doing that. On the other hand, if we look over here at group 7, we've got something with 7 electrons in its outer shell like chlorine. You'll want to gain an electron. However, sometimes the situation's more complicated. Now, first of all, just to show you really that when you do your GCSE, if you're really unsure about something, they do give you the formula of even quite simple ions. So there's the chloride ion there. Remember, if it's an ion, it's a chloride ion that comes from the element chlorine. On the other hand, if we've got a metal ion like magnesium, again it's given you, if you're doing GCSE, the formula there. Complex ions. Here is ammonium. Ammonium has 5 atoms in it, but it has an overall charge of +1, whereas something like sulfate has 6 atoms in it, but it has an overall charge of 2-. And when we do that, we treat the whole thing, the SO4, as one entity, and that whole one entity has an overall charge of 2-. This means that if we're writing a formula for a compound with those 2 ions in it, then the situation is relatively straightforward. We've got an Mg2+ ion, and we've got a sulfate ion, which we've just said has an overall charge of 2-. So if we're going to put these together in a compound, then the 2+ will cancel out the 2-. We only need one of each of them, and the formula of our compound will be MgSO4. Example, well, let's go for hydrogen sulfate or sulfuric acid. Hydrogen has a charge of 1+. Sulfate has a charge of 2-. If we just put our SO4 together with 1H, then we haven't cancelled out this 2-. We've only cancelled out one of those minuses with this plus, so we wouldn't get a neutral compound. If we want hydrogen sulfate as a neutral, sulfuric acid as a neutral compound, then we need 2 of these pluses to cancel out our 2-, and that's why it's H2SO4. So let's go for ammonium. If you look at the list, ammonium has an overall positive charge. Ammonium chloride is a very common compound. So if we have ammonium, which has a charge of plus, and chloride, which has a charge of -1, then if we put them together, we will just get NH4Cl. So then what about if we start off with ammonium and we want to make ammonium sulfate? Pause now quickly and just work out what the formula of this compound would be. So we've got a +1 here and a -2 here as our charge, or a plus and a 2-. We need 2 of these to balance out the 2- here. So if we put these together like this, and there's nothing else there, then overall we wouldn't have a neutral compound because we haven't got 2 of these pluses to balance out the 2-. We need to put brackets around the whole thing, because remember it's the whole thing here that has a charge of +1. We need 2 of those to get our ammonium sulfate.